Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and our continuing series on the Sega STV or Sega Titan video arcade board. And today we're taking a look at, and mispronunciation alert coming in, Kurara Diasakusen, or Princess Kurara, basically as an amalgam of her name. And this is a side story or offshoot game from the Power Instinct or Melee series of fighting games from Atlus. It's a real mouthful and it's got a fun backstory, but what it really is an awesome run and gun arcade game on the Sega Titan video arcade board. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down below as well. But I absolutely love this game. I've loved it since the first time I played it. I imported this on the Sega Saturn back when you can still import things from EB Games. I fell in love with it then and I've loved it ever since. I will say though, fair warning, if you want a physical copy of this game, get your wallet, it's going to cost you a couple $100. Do I think it's worth it based on the length? Probably not, but if you're a big collector, you probably already know about it and you've already made that decision whether or not you want to buy it. But right off the top, you can tell exactly what this game is all about. It's kind of an isometric run and gun shmup, for lack of a better term. It feels like a shmup in a way because you have that 8-directional ability to move around, but it's also kind of like a run and gun beat 'em up at the same time. But this game is charming, it's unique, it's colorful, and it's got a lot of things in it that you wouldn't really expect. So what you're going to see here is the first boss comes down, and it's a giant mechanical spider, and I just love the look of him and his buddy there. Attacking them is the wrong move. They've got a lot of hit points, but if you break their web apart, they're going to fall down, and then they're going to do this. Pop back up, hover, and then fall one more time in a comical, almost Wile E. Coyote fashion. This game just has a lot of charm to it, and this charm is going to be brought through the entire experience. And because this does have some small tie-in to the Power Instinct series, I love it even more. Honestly, it doesn't really have much at all to do with that series outside of the character, but it is a ton of fun nonetheless. But this is also a very challenging game. As you get into later stages, all the projectiles that you're dealing with all at once and all the enemies on screen at once are really going to give you a full run for your money, but I love that. This is a challenging game, and it's the type of game that you can beat if you just throw quarters at it, or in this instance virtual quarters, because I'm not putting quarters into an arcade cabinet. But trying to get better at this game is where it really is. And you'll see here we have this fairy companion character, and we do have power-ups that will explode basically everybody on screen. And the more points and experience we get, the more that helper character is going to level up in between stages and become more powerful. You will see we also have a hammer, and that is going to be important as well, because once you hammer something like an enemy, they're going to explode. And if they're near another enemy, they're going to explode that enemy as well, so it's really going to be able to chain a lot of different destruction together to make your task a little bit easier. But now that we're on to the first boss fight, I just love the aesthetic of these different bosses and enemy characters, because they're steampunky almost in the same way that Pro Gear on the Capcom CPS2 has that same vibe. But they also have different animal or insect vibes. That cannon in the front comes out like a proboscis, almost like you're fighting a flying mosquito. And as you get later into the game, some of the bosses are just going to be straight up animals. And I just like that as an aesthetic. And when you beat an enemy, or specifically a boss, all of these different animals are going to pop out onto the ground that you can collect to maximize your points. It's definitely taking the cute 'em up aspect of, like a run and gun shooter and just going full bore with it. Because now we have these mechanical worms popping out, we have these mechanical frogs. Everything is just so much fun to look at. The designs of all the enemies in this game are absolutely spectacular. But as fun as this game is, and as absolutely visually impressive as it looks, this game also has a really fun soundtrack. Not as good as the Power Instinct series, but close. So go ahead and listen for like 35-45 seconds. I'll come back and talk more about the game. Enjoy! I love the soundtrack. It's cute and jazzy, but also has some operatic qualities to it in later stages. Did I forget to mention that one of the characters you can play as is a giant dog that shoots fire from his mouth, and his hand attack is just amazing. He doesn't have a hammer or mallet to hit enemies with, he just has one giant paw that he's going to bop you with. It's just weird and fun. But getting on to the boss again, this game has like a quasi-boss rush feel, because Judgment here is going to be a really long battle. All the stages are is just fodder to get you to the next boss encounter. While all the stages are fun, this game really shines with the bosses because it's sort of like a mechanical dragon shooting fire at you, and it has different stages, and all the bosses are going to make you think you've beaten them, and then you're going to find out that you were actually completely dead wrong when it happens. You're waiting for the stage to end, and now all of a sudden the dragon face comes out with these red glowing eyes and basically what looks like a flamethrower on his mouth. The character design in this game is spectacular, and that's something in the Power Instinct series and Groove On Fight that we've talked about already as well. Atlus made amazing character designs, and they still do. Their developers and their artists were just able to create these characters that have so much life to them, even if they are robotic in nature here. And now all of a sudden we're just going to get a bunch of trash pandas and turtles flying up from the abyss. I just love it, and I think you really are going to love it too. And this is one of those games I rarely, if ever, hear mentioned. No one, when they're talking about awesome retro Sega Saturn games or STV games, usually brings this game up, and I'm genuinely surprised by that. I think it just flew under the radar because it's an offshoot game from Power Instinct, a fighting franchise that I love but's never been anyone's favorite as far as like the community is concerned. But if you've never played this game before, I can't recommend it enough, because you'll see here, as we do get into the later stages, it just starts getting really hard. But running past enemies just to get to the boss when you're low on health can absolutely be a strategy. And I know I mentioned earlier that some of the bosses just look like straight up animals. Death Scissors here is just one giant crab, and he uses that mechanical claw to come down in front of his face, making him invulnerable. And that's where that 8-way directional attack comes into play, because you might not be able to hit him head on, but if you go to the side and shoot at an angle, you're going to be able to open him up to different attacks. And those snowmen that fall down with a fez to freeze you in place, every ounce of this game is charming. Every single thing to look at, every single thing to see, every single thing to hear has just so much thought and attention put into it. It feels like a special game, and I know I say that about a decent amount of games, but those are the games I pick, and I pick them because they feel special. But this game has something that I feel like most games don't, and I just really love it. But I will say, as cute and charming as the game is up until this point, it does get really weird as time goes on, because what you're going to see here as we go into the next level, all of a sudden that colorful, vibrant nature is going to get a little bit more mechanical, and it's going to get a little bit stranger as we move throughout the level. And it's just a really fun way to end the game. But if you do notice, or if you haven't yet, at the top right hand corner of the screen it says press start. You can play this game with 2 players, and when you're playing with a friend side by side, it gets even that much more fun, because one of you can focus on one side of the screen and one can focus on the other, or you can kind of go forward and backwards to kind of divide the screen that way. This is a great 2-player game, so if you got some friends, you got a game night coming up, and you want them to play something that they've maybe never heard of before, definitely put this on, because I think you're going to find it to be an absolute ton of fun, because it only really takes like 25 minutes from start to finish to play the entirety of this game. And that's why I mentioned earlier that if you wanted to pick a copy up for the Saturn, it might not be worth the money as far as the gameplay length is concerned. But now we're on to the final boss, and everything cute about this game has gone completely out the window, and now we clearly have this H.R. Geiger inspired aliens themed boss going on. We've got all these different mechanical, what look like entrails in the floor, and we have this giant evil creepy looking face just staring back at us. It is weird, but I am 100% there for it, and I think it's a really fun way to end a really cute game by making it strange. But because it is based on Power Instinct and Metro Melee, that means it's also based on Groove On Fight, and since I've already put a video of that up, if you remember, that is a way more set in the future fighting game in the Power Instinct franchise, and that has much darker tones as well. So even though story-wise this doesn't have that much of a tie into Power Instinct, the characters and the overall vibe going from cute to really creepy and evil really do make sense if you've played all the games in the different diverse franchises. And if you've never played any of the Power Instinct fighting games, I highly recommend those. Even though this is not a fighting game whatsoever, do check them out because they're some of my favorites. But yeah, that is the game. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again because I'm going to screw it up completely. And if you've never played this one, you owe it to yourself to check it out. But if you have played it or been meaning to play it, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think, because I love hearing your guys' opinions. Short of that, I'll have another video next Wednesday on the ST-V or Sega Titan video, and I'll have videos throughout the week as well. But do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, or I will send this giant praying mantis to your house. Bye-bye.